My name is Stephen Bifano. I'm a graduate student at Seton University and currently living in Newark. As a Newark native, hip-hop music and culture has been embedded in all aspects of my life and the lives of the citizens of the city. MCing, DJing, breaking, and graffiti are all still present in some way as the genre evolved. Who knew that this way of life could possibly be under threat? The first step to making any beat, anything in hip hop, I can't speak for other producers, but for myself at least, you always go with the drums. The drums are essentially the foundation of any hip hop beat, especially sample-based hip hop. And of course, you got to sample stuff from vinyl because you want that grit, you want that dirtiness. You know what I mean? So what I do is, this sampler is really old and busted, so I gotta like twist the wire and do all this crazy stuff to it just to be able to get it to work. So I like to mess with the speed, the pitch. I think I recorded something, let's see. Let's see if I record it. Perfect. So now I have a loop. Before you record anything into your DAW, you're gonna want to get the BPM. So you have to start, messing with that. So what I do is I go on a BPM calculator. I play my drums. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. So it looks like it's at 97. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into my Ableton folder, BPM. Right here, I set it to 97, right? I'm gonna go into the track and now I'm gonna record the drums in. So now I have a really cool loop, right? So what I'm gonna do is, so we have a kick and a snare right there. So look, this is what I do. This is the beginning of it all. So you piece everything together. So watch this. I'm gonna command copy, command paste. This is where we're gonna get the music. So what I'm about to sample is, so I'm about to sample this. I'm gonna try to see if I can find something that's like really cool, and it sounds good. So let's see what we find. The male, his vocals in the beginning, that just sounded crazy. I can see that being something I can chop up and play over it or whatever, you know what I'm saying? All right, so now what I'm doing is I put my sample into this plugin called Serato Sample, which allows me to use this, my MPD, to cut it up. So essentially when you have the turntable, the laptop with Ableton with Serato Sample on it, it becomes a sampler in and of itself. So now I can cut it up. So now I'm making chops, making little chops. So I found this really dope loop in the track. like the loop, but I didn't like the way that sounded though. Ooh, that was weird. Interesting sounding. I can rearrange a drum loop, but actually finding something in another song and bringing it around, you know, changing it around and making it into something new, that's a whole nother process. So now what I could do is I could just chop up like. Yeah, I'm putting it together now. Gotta mess around with it more.
It's like the quickest you can put an entire beat together.
All right, I'm gonna record some stuff now. Now I'm gonna try layering the sample, because like sometimes when you layer it with different sounds, like, so hold up. See something though. I got some ideas now.
How does that speak to you?
I don't know, it's just weird.
Weird is good.
It is good, for me at least. That will be the hook. So the first loop would be like a hook / intro, and then this would be the verses. This would be the part that the MC raps over. So I want to see if I can make that sound a little bit cleaner. This type of work, this type of art, people had to do it this way because they couldn't afford music instruments or to initially like learn how to play instruments. This style of like music production, it's all about working with what you have. You don't need to have everything in your midst to create something dope. You can work with what you have. And I think if you were to study or observe any group of people that are oppressed or in some type of way marginalized, they work with what they have, essentially. You know what I mean? Hip hop is a culture. It's an art form. You know, it's something that I've loved since I was like a kid. For me, at least, it's like sampling is the foundation of it. So for me, it's just the art itself. That's what really inspires me. Over the years, I've heard rumors that artificial intelligence, specifically Google Assistant, could detect samples in songs. Tracklib, a music service that provides cleared samples at a hefty price, reported on this in 2023. While still in its early stages, many have expressed concerns. I decided to explore Instagram to see if artists have experienced any issues with AI and sampling, and I came across a producer named Clypto who posted on a multitude of occasions that his music was taken down from streaming. I decided to reach out to Clypto directly to see if any of this had to do with sampling. He agreed to meet with me virtually to discuss the matter and hinted to the fact that AI was involved in his music being taken down from streaming. While horrified, I was also intrigued. Talking to some people in the underground, going on your Instagram, it's come to my attention that your album with Substance 810 was taken down from all streaming platforms. Does any of this have to do with samples?
Yes, it actually has everything to do with samples. So what exactly happened is we went to go through Substance's distribution company, and the distribution company picked up a sample. That was actually the vinyl company that picked up the sample originally and didn't want to press vinyl for us because of the sample that was picked up with their artificial intelligence technology.
So it wasn't just music distributors, it was also a vinyl manufacturer that detected the sample.
Yes, and that was the first thing that happened was the vinyl company that we were originally going to go with picked up the sample, one of the samples in the album, and they decided not to go forward with pressing our album.
So how did that all happen with digital streaming platforms? Like how did they detect samples? Like what exactly happened?
We didn't even get past the artificial intelligence for digital streaming platforms because they picked up a whole nother sample that wasn't picked up by the vinyl company. Since they picked that sample up and the time for us to release the album was in a short period of time, there wasn't really any time to do a workaround to try and work around the artificial intelligence not picking up the sample. So we just decided to not even go forward with putting it on DSP.
So it got picked up from someone else who used the sample essentially with the content ID.
Correct. So somebody else who doesn't own the original sample used that sample in one of their songs. The distributor that I used wound up picking up the sample and essentially the song and saying, hey, you have a sample that's containing this person's song. And so they content ID'd their song. And so anytime that anybody uses that same sample, it's going to flag it as it's their song.
Sounds very complicated and complex. So it's not even like the person you sampled was the one that got it taken down. It was someone else who used the sample basically. Wow.
Correct. And yeah, and that's essentially what happened.
So was this the only time that your music was taken down? Was it just this album, or were there other works anything else that you put out that was taken down because of samples?
Yes, I've dealt with this situation before. There's been a few things that have been taken off of streaming. I'll say 75% of them, we were able to do a workaround to get the song past the detection.
Do you know anyone else in the producer community that has gone through the same thing that you're going through right now?
Yes, I know firsthand people in the producer community and people in the, on the MC side.
If you were to give like a count of how many people you know, how many would it be?
Probably 6.
6. Wow. Even though the number might not seem super big, it still is a lot of people who are being targeted. It's showing that it's a growing precedent, essentially.
Yes, it is, because even though I'm telling you 6, that number could very well be 12. Say you have 8 different producers on an album, the platform detects a sample, and now those 8 producers can't even get any splits on their DSPs because for the songs that they've done, because you can't put up the album. Directly, I know 6 people. But with those 6 people, I don't know how many producers that they have on their project. So essentially, it affects a lot more people than just, that one person.
What are the solutions to these issues? Like, what can we do about it as a community?
Unfortunately, I think there isn't much that we can do. As they would call it, us little people don't really have enough pull in a capitalist society that we live in to really do much about it. I think what we can do is we can do our best to make artificial intelligence work more for us instead of against us. There are companies out there with artificial intelligence to where they can recreate a 70s sample and it sounds just like something out of 1975. So if we're able to utilize artificial intelligence and sample some artificial intelligence 70s soul samples, then I think, working together with it instead of against it would be our best bet because it's not going anywhere. We just have to embrace it where we can and make it work for us instead of against us.
After finding out the truth, I decided to reach out to others to find a solution to this issue. I decided to venture outside of my neighborhood, and I came in contact with DJ Mr. Len, a member of the legendary hip-hop group Company Flow, who also has his own solo career as a sample-based producer. Mr. Len agreed to meet with me in downtown Newark on Halsey Street at Bunker, a creative studio for DJs that is deeply involved in Newark's music scene. With Mr. Len being a pioneer in underground hip-hop, I knew he'd be able to give some clarity. As a pioneer in this genre, what is the historical significance of sampling in hip-hop?
It's the backbone of production. Without it, there's very limited records that are made where it's strictly keyboards and drum machines. So sampling is a big part of what we do. It is the backbone of what we do.
So a sample-based producer that I know by the name of Clypto, his album with Substance 810 from Detroit was taken down from all streaming platforms because supposedly the music distributor they're using is using an AI to detect samples in the music. And it flagged the sample and their album got taken down from streaming platforms. What is your take on this occurrence?
One, I wouldn't rely on AI. And you can't even rely on like Shazam and those things. I guess they use AI technology. They don't always get it right. It's a machine going off what it perceives the sounds to be. So like there's times that like I've made beats where I was like, okay, I looped this record, but like I know I looped it weird. Let me see what Shazam says, and Shazam will pull up something that's like a techno record, And I'm like, this is so far off, like, but this is something that would shut me down with somebody making the record, manufacturing it, or even like distributing the record because their AI said, well, you sampled a techno record, and it's not the same thing.
What's really weird is that the same album, they put it through to a vinyl manufacturer because they were going to print out copies, and the vinyl manufacturer, the Substance users, detected another sample from a completely different song, and they shut them down as well.
Right.
So what I'm seeing is different companies are using AI to detect samples, and it's interesting you say like it can make mistakes, like Shazam made the mistake and said it was a techno song. The song that got flagged through the music distributors, it was content ID'd from like another artist who used the sample. So it wasn't even from the original artist.
It was a sample of a sample?
This artist used the sample in one of their compositions, and I guess they got to it before Clypto, so they got flagged for that and not the actual person they sampled. And he was even saying
even worse. Technology is supposed to help us progress, but all it's doing is kind of halting things. We're relying sometimes too much on technology to get things right. But the other part of it too is sample clearance. Sample clearance is a huge issue, and like it's why people get shut down.
So have you ever dealt with any issues with sample clearance, like
Absolutely.
as a producer?
Absolutely. I got a cease and desist from Philip Glass for Taco Day, song I did with Jean Grey. He wanted $12,000 to clear the sample.
For one sample?
For one sample, yeah. So I was like, yeah, that's not gonna happen. So there's a cease and desist on Pity the Fool. So anyone that has Pity the Fool, it's I guess it's a collector's item. Like I can't press it anymore. There's no vinyl, no CDs.
Wow.
Yeah, and then like they had to go back to all the stores and collect them. I did try to clear the sample. Like when I finished the album, I had to write down all the samples that I used. And I remember the label laughing like, you listen to Philip Glass? But yeah, they didn't clear it and he shut it down.
Well, $12,000 is
$12,000 a lot.
Is insane. I mean, if you have 4 different samples in one song, that could be literally, it's like a down payment on a house.
Yeah. And in that song, he wasn't the only person I sampled. So yeah.
So what do you think would have been like a fair form of compensation? Like he asked for something. Like what do you think would have been fair?
Even if he wanted 50% of the publishing on the song, I'd have been cool with that. So
if you had the opportunity to actually change these laws, influence someone to change these laws, what would these laws look like to you?
A lot of it is leniency. These are not things that are easily covered by a blanket law. Like a lot of these things are subjective. A lot of these things are case by case,
So you say case by case, like, so essentially, like you can have someone who actually chops something up and layers it, right? Like this. Or you can have someone who just has a simple loop from a record and it's like. some people, the loop might be with nothing underneath it. It might be too much. But the other thing, chopping it,
Right.
you're actually putting a little bit more work into it. You know what I mean?
Well, that, and like I said, when you start to layer, if I'm not layering everything from the same song, so like you have that loop over it, but if the voices over it are from another record, the drums are from another record, and it's all recognizable.
Yeah.
With a blanket law, like everybody is gonna get 50%, or everybody's gonna get 10%. Like if you have 30 samples in there, how does everybody get 10%? You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, it has to be case
so
by
like,
case.
what, like, from like a producer standpoint, like what should the rules be for us to abide by? Like,
there's no rules to art. There's no rules. So like I said, it's they're stopping the progression of music because of AI, and like you don't even know if it's right or not. And now everyone's losing. And then like I said, you do a blanket thing where I sample you, but like it costs me so much money to get the record heard, right? That now you want the money on top of it. Like what money? There's nothing there. If you want a piece of the publishing, which is they realize there's no money in it. It's a money grab for almost everybody, except for the person that's just trying to get his record heard. For me, everything has to be a case-by-case basis. There's no way like you can just throw a blanket over this thing and say, you can't sample it or you have to pay this much for a sample. I didn't use 10% of your sample, so like, why?
in a way,
right.
You would say it's really not, you can't regulate it really.
No, you can't regulate it. Absolutely not. Nowhere in the art world, you know what I'm saying? Like you can't, using too much red. What? No, you can't regulate that. It's music.
After speaking with Mr. Len, I decided to venture outside of New Jersey. I reached out to multiple sample-based producers in New York City, and I eventually came in contact with Wavy Da Ghawd, a frequent collaborator of Rome Streets and other notable underground MCs. He agreed to meet with me at his home studio in Brooklyn to discuss the current issue at hand. I was curious to see if he had any issues with sample clearance and sample detection, similar to Mr. Len and Clypto. I was also wondering if he had possible solutions in mind when it came to AI being used to detect samples. Being an underground success, I'm sure he'd be able to come up with some solutions to this issue and provide some insight. So what does sampling mean to you? Like, what does it mean when you're doing all of this work?
I adopted this way of life, man, because I grew up listening to sample-based music. When I got into it, it was due to the infatuation of how these beats were being constructed by my favorite producers, you know? And I wanted to emulate it until I wanted to, you know, grow into my own skin and be my own shit, you know?
Speaking of sampling, you know, I've heard, and I've actually spoken to a producer, his name is Clypto.
Okay.
He has told me that some of his music has been taken down from digital streaming platforms, and it's also been rejected by vinyl manufacturers because they're using some type of technology to detect samples in music. So his music's been taken down because of a detection in samples. Okay. So what is your take on this occurrence?
I say that it's kind of messed up that they're going extra far just to like flag people out of their artistry. Because it is art at the end of the day. Look how many decades that people been sampling music. We gotta understand that music came from a hobby. The hobby comes from having fun, you know what I'm saying? So when they try to like take that fun away from the music that we do, makes the whole scene look real shitty, man. Like why are we letting certain individuals into our scene?
Like, as someone who does use sampling to create your work, how do you feel about this new precedent and how it could eventually affect you possibly?
There's a possibility it could affect me. You know, I'm one of those guys that go on the websites. They have websites that actually flag people down and they sample snitch on you like
who sampled?
Hey, there you go. I didn't want to say it, but you did it. But they have sites like that and they'll flag you down. And when I go and look at my name and look up my name and I see my name in there, I know they can't catch all of my stuff because there is ways that you could beat around that shit. If you follow the, you know, little precautions, understand the laws, how it actually work. A lot of records that all of us grew up off of, it doesn't matter. It's been about like, it was 50 years of hip hop now, like 60 years. Like, come on, all that sample-based music. So what you're gonna do, you're just gonna like, just throw away all that history that's been made just because what it is now, because AI can detect.
Has it happened yet? Has any of your music been taken down from streaming platforms due to a detection in samples?
No, it hasn't happened quite yet. I wouldn't want to say slick ways, but I have my ways to like kind of like get around that.
Besides, you know, the AI being able to like flag samples, has anyone ever like gone at you for sample clearance?
No, it hasn't quite happened quite yet. You gotta do like a Drake record or something crazy like that to like really get like on people's radar, you will get into some shit. And it's inevitable. If you work with guys that's under the radar, you have a chance to thrive.
With the AI now, that's where it gets complicated. Whereas you go under the radar, you're in the underground, you're good. But now the AI could be like, no one's gonna be good.
It depends how vicious they set that AI up to be, man. Because if they're really chasing down people for like, that have like very minimum, 1,000 max. 1,000 is nothing. But to get flagged down with those numbers is like, ugh.
You mentioned earlier that you have, little techniques and ways to avoid being noticed. Can you build on like what it is that you do with sampling to avoid getting flagged by the AI or from anyone for that matter?
Rule number one is that I don't go for the obvious records. Think about the 60s and 70s, the 80s. You go for the most popular artists of those times, you're gonna get flagged. So what I do is that I go and I explore other countries. I go to other countries, small countries, because every country does music. It could be anything that's foreign. The more foreign, because these companies were so small, they didn't really had like a backing or legal backing behind them to like really protect them whenever people tend to sample.
So essentially go for more obscure stuff.
Yes.
That's not gonna be noticed or flagged.
Yeah, man, you gotta start traveling, stepping outside your box. Instead of going for the obvious records, Quincy Jones and all that other stuff, and they make phenomenal music, you're going to get flagged because that's homegrown. They're gonna spot that in a second. So first things first is to go obscure. So start there.
What you were chopping up earlier, that's something from another country, something obscure.
I believe it's an Italian record because I did sample a few. So what I do, you gotta speed up, you gotta time stretch it, speed it up, warp it, you know what I'm saying? Put a heavy filter on it. All of that's important. Pitching. It changes the whole integrity of the whole record.
Are you ever worried that the AI could evolve or advance to the point where even like something obscure from another country, even if like you manipulate it to the point where it's so unrecognizable, are you ever worried that it could get to that point where it can detect it?
Man, then I'll start going to Guitar Center and start taking lessons in the afternoon, learning how to play an instrument, because I'm a sample-based producer. Then I'll initially be forced to learn an instrument, which isn't a bad thing, but it's more fun to like go into the time capsules and taking excerpts from the past. So what are they gonna do? And at the end of the day, we make rebel music. If this is hip hop we're doing, we're gonna rebel against this shit on the strength, Case or no case,
Or
What
are solutions to these issues? Like, how do we have a say in how this technology is being used?
I feel like power is in numbers. Let's start there. If we get a petition and waiver and actually build like a union, it would actually work out in everybody's favor, because a union will keep structure. Even rebels have structure and ethics in their own camps. So if we have like a structure to practice good ethics amongst sample-based producers and the people that they're taking music from, then maybe there will be a greater chance of the culture to thrive the way it needs to thrive without any discrepancy. Communication and transparency and structure is what's gonna be the solution for this shit to be the way it needs to be. Right, for everybody to be happy,
After speaking with Wavy, I decided to reach out to someone who specializes in law. I contacted Dr. Brian Sheppard, a law professor at Seton Hall who is a hip-hop head and who has worked with the likes of Supreme Court Justice Elena Kagan and Del the Funky Homo Sapien when he was a radio station DJ in college. I figured with his background, he could point me in the right direction regarding a solution to this issue.
It is true that copyright does govern the law of sampling, and that story goes all the way back to the very beginning of the country, because the Constitution itself actually has something called the Copyright Clause. And what that did was invite Congress to create a regime that allows people to have exclusive rights over their creations. So if you create a song, copyright law gives you basically intellectual property rights to that song, meaning you can sue someone if they've taken your intellectual property and copyright, and they call that copyright infringement. So when hip hop started, it was pretty underground. It was very difficult for people that owned the songs that were being sampled sampled to even notice that they were being sampled. And even if they did notice, they largely assumed that there just wasn't any money in it because hip-hop artists in the early days weren't, at least according to them, making enough money to make it worth their while to sue. That all started to change by the time we get to the 90s. Some of the rights holders saw an opportunity to make a lot of money, and Gilbert O'Sullivan, in connection with Warner Brothers, really was the pivot point. At that time, Biz Markie had sampled a Gilbert O'Sullivan song called Alone Again Naturally. He had initially tried to get licensing for the song and they turned him down, but he just sampled it anyway. And so this prompted a lawsuit from Warner Brothers against his label, Grand Upright Music. And not only did they lose, the opinion went out of its way to describe what was going on as theft. Sampling as theft, sampling as a crime. In fact, at the end of the opinion, the judge, Judge Duffy, who was a Nixon appointee, he actually said he was going to refer the case to the U.S. Attorney's Office to criminally prosecute the people that had sampled the song. So the main effect was, one, to vastly increase the price of sampling. And it sent a signal to rights holders, hey, they can't just take this stuff, we can get money for it. Two, the criminal aspect just frightened them away from sampling anyway, regardless of price. So what we see after that is an increase in price and then different methods in response to try to avoid that kind of copyright infringement. And so what you'll see is as sampling was increasing through the late 80s and early 90s, once Grand Upright happens, it takes a precipitous drop. And we start seeing far fewer sampled recordings in hip-hop songs.
That's all interesting, but right now, from what I've been noticing is, there's an artist that I've met who's told me that his music has been taken down due to a detection in samples from digital streaming platforms, a music distributor. So, and this has happened to him multiple times because of samples that the AI or some type of emerging technology is detecting. What is your take on this occurrence?
So it is true that for quite some time, companies, especially streaming companies, have employed these kind of policing mechanisms that are automated. So they basically look at waveforms and see whether they match things that are in a database, and if they do, ordinarily they just preemptively take down things. They have been using technology to identify sampling, which means that even a well-disguised sample might be able to be detected. This raises an interesting problem because there are ways to use samples fairly that wouldn't violate the copyright law. Through a doctrine called fair use. Interestingly, fair use law is very vague. That's part of the reason why you can't really automate it. But, a well-disguised sample or a very short sample, even though that might be picked up by some sort of algorithm, it could be something that the courts would allow.
So as someone who is well-versed in law, do you think there should be a change in the laws to protect artists who are sampling?
I do. I think that sampling has produced some of the greatest musical works over the last several decades. It's something that we as a society should value. I think one way to fix this is to have greater clarity about what use is fair and therefore excused. Because copyright works on an incentive system, the idea is we want more people to be creative, and the way that we incentivize people to be creative is to give them property and allow them to make money. So to me, the aspect of fair use that makes the most sense is the last one, which is effect on the market. If someone is taking a bit of music from someone else and it's a song that hasn't been popular in 30 years, there's very little risk that taking that sample is going to take away consumers of the original artist. I mean, odds are it'll probably help that artist by giving attention to the original song. So it could be a situation where everyone wins. But because that is just one factor among many, and because courts have applied it in such a haphazard fashion, it really scares artists away from doing that and scares record labels away. So greater clarity, I think, focused on whether you're really taking money away from someone would go a long way.
With regards to artificial intelligence being able to detect samples, are there any solutions to these issues?
I would guess that you could fight fire with fire to some extent. There might be ways to use AI to modify waveforms in a way that doesn't affect how it sounds to the human ear, but might throw off an automated system. Another thing that could happen is AI-powered interpolation, where you could have the AI basically give you something that's very much like the sample that you're trying to use, but is effectively created by the AI, and therefore wouldn't be taking the master recording. So a shorter way of saying that idea would be to say that AI is just a tool, and it's not obvious that it's a tool that can only be used by the record labels or the streaming services. It could also be used by the artists too, potentially.
To create samples, basically.
Potentially, yeah. Or to disguise the fact that you've used a sample.
Is there any way for us as a community to be able to change these laws and prevent this technology from being used in this way? Would a petition possibly be helpful, or some form of collective action?
Yes, I think it could be. Collective action is tough, but it's effective because when a lot of people are speaking with one voice, you're more likely to get the power brokers to listen. Legal change is very difficult in this country, especially at the federal level, but that doesn't mean that you can't try. One way to try to change it is to reach out to Congress people in your district or senators in your state. The hard thing is getting noticed. And so I think one way to get noticed is to get a lot of people together speaking with one voice. And one way to do that quickly might be to convince some of the guilds in the musical arts to join in the cause. So the American Federation of Musicians, for example, or the American Guild of Musical Artists. It's possible that if they're made aware that artists feel a certain way and they think it's a just cause, then they might be able to get behind the cause and get it noticed. I will say in this current political climate, it can be hard to get sweeping change through Congress. So the courts might be a more attractive avenue, but anything could help.
After talking to Dr. Sheppard, I decided to see if AI could be a realistic solution to this current issue. Once and for all, I decided to see for myself. Maybe this could save sampling. So after talking to Dr. Sheppard and Clypto, they both suggested that one thing that's good that can come from AI with sampling is we can create samples ourselves with AI. Hey ChatGPT, I want a prompt for Suno AI. Can you please create a prompt for me? I also want this to sound like it is coming from a vinyl player. Let's see what it does. Okay, so it looks like it created a prompt. I'm gonna copy the prompt. All right, we're gonna go to Suno AI. I'm gonna go under style and put that there. The worst that can happen is it sucks. See what happens. Okay, let's see what this does. Okay, the first one loaded, so I wanna hear this. It sounds too modern, but one thing I like about it is the parts where there's no singing, it definitely sounds like something I can chop up and sample easily. I'm gonna use this one. Let's do another one, because I want to blend the samples. So this next one I have in mind, I want no lyrics. I don't want any lyrics whatsoever. Let's see how this sounds. Yeah, it doesn't really have, let me see the next one. Yeah, that's definitely not. So either I really suck at interacting with AI, or the technology isn't there yet where it can get exactly what you're looking for sampling. But from a sampler standpoint, as someone who samples, you know, the goal is to take stuff that you don't even like sometimes and make it into something interesting. I should have put no guitar on purpose. I don't want any fucking guitar on this shit. Wait, that sounds interesting though. I actually kind of like the piano though. So let me see the next one. Oh, this sounds like 80s though. Now this sounds like it's 80s. I'm gonna download this one. Download anyway, and I'm gonna download, let me go through the other ones to see what we had. It sounds like a Game of Thrones video game commercial. Let me hear this one. I'm not into that. All right, so I have two samples, so now I'm gonna try messing with them and see what I can do. Now I actually wanna see what happens if I get rid of the sample completely. I'll keep the drums the way they are because I want my drums to sound gritty. But I'm gonna see what happens when we delete the samples and we use the AI sample. Maybe I can make something just as dope. Maybe it won't be just as dope. Maybe it'll be not great. So, but regardless of all this, we should at least try. Okay, the R&B shit, I think I'm gonna mess around with. I'm gonna do this one first. Now that sounds weird. Let me bring it up a little bit. Let me detune it a little bit. Let's. So I'm gonna try making something now. So let's see how this works. Let me record now. I like how that sounded. So there we go. Now we have an actual decent loop. So let's see how that sounds. We're gonna start layering it now with other stuff. So now we have something. So let's actually lay this shit down now. So that sounds pretty good. So let's hear this bullshit. It's like a bootleg Cobra Kai sounding. Let me see something. Let's hear this bullshit. Ooh. It's like it just maybe it's the delay. So let me get rid of the delay or make the delay. Maybe I'll put it to like 1.
You don't like it right now?
It's okay. We're gonna record that now. That's my favorite part, honestly. I'm sorry, it really is. See if I can find something else to throw in there from this shit sample. Shit sandwich. I think it would give some emphasis to the moans. I mean, I feel like for what it is, it's pretty good. I would say, in terms of it being a solution to the issue with sampling, sure, I think, there's a possibility if you learn how to work with the AI, you can generate samples that are better than what I generated. But I still think you should just sample records, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. It can be used for good, but it can also be used for bad. But I would also say, if AI can get to the point where I can sample it and I can make it sound like something like this, that's it. It would make things a lot easier for everyone, but it does take that tradition out of it, which I think is a problem. But regardless of all this, I'm going to continue to sample. I don't care what happens. At this point in my life, like, I don't do this for money. I do this because it's like an art form. It's something I love. It's a part of my life, part of my culture. For me, I'm never going to stop doing this. Like, this is who I am. This is what I'm about. This will forever be better than what I just did tonight.